We're going down. We're going down. Don't dear away. Slow dancing. I was the one you always dreamed of. You were the one I tried to draw. How dare you say it's nothing to me? Baby, you're the only light I ever saw. I make the most of all the sadness. You'll be a bitch because you can. You try to make me just so you leave me feeling dirty because you can't understand. We're going down. We're going down.
All right. Aaron, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
There. Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you good. Yeah.
Okay.
How about me?
Okay.
We're
Yeah, I got
good?
you.
All
Yes.
right, sweet. I
Yeah,
know.
I'm running this microphone through a USB port, which I'm totally not used to. So,
That's awesome. Like I mine, right. I always start on time, which is hilarious because today I had my mic in a different room. Because and then I was like, oh crap.
hey,
I
how do
was like,
you
what am I missing?
you
Probably
gotta
the
show
microphone.
you gotta show me how to blur that background.
I know. So you go to your little video thing on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Oh,
click,
blur.
there's a little arrow, and then it says either blur my background. If you have some cool virtual ones, I do
There it
have some
is.
cool ones. I got this one for the 4th of July, baby.
There it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. So yes, sometimes that blur helps out quite a bit. But Amy says hello. She couldn't make it. She did the air show with her kid. So
Ah,
Amy's really on here with me,
okay.
welcome tonight is awesome. I can't wait. We've been doing this for like this portion. I've been doing this at least a year.
Okay.
Where we come on Sunday nights and do a little Facebook Live. We're gonna get better and better at it, where it's not gonna be necessarily like a Zoom. It'll be more kind of a live chat where we actually get questions and stuff.
Oh,
So
nice.
so knowing you, I know I can get you back on. So once people
Yeah,
have
for
a bunch of
sure.
questions, when I get them
Yeah.
at the office, which will happen after
Yeah.
tonight. So I want to welcome everybody. And then my first thing I got to do is I got to go through the three things I found in studying and research this week. Um, very simple stuff, and then we'll start. So my first thing, and it's all about holistic stuff. So this first one was a new study just said that gardening improves sleep. So if you have trouble sleeping, they found that that actually works. So that's pretty cool. This one's kind of troubling. This one's kind of a tough one, but NSAIDs, which is exactly what they said take an aspirin a day for, are actually linked to heart attacks within the first 7 days or month that people start taking them. We've known this since 2004, but we didn't really put those two together until this big old study just came out. So they said a lot of try to find a different alternative ways to take care of those acute pain problems, as best you can. There's a ton of herbs out there. Some stuff that our audience kind of is known. I talk about it all the time. Turmeric, ginger, bromelain. There's all kinds of good stuff out there. So try something different. So that's one. That's the second one. And then our last one for tonight is magnesium. Magnesium is huge in reducing pain. And so a lot of people are going to magnesium creams. What it is it's a natural calcium channel blocker, and those calcium channel block that allows, if you have the right balance, a lot of my medicine, if you have to take a lot of meds, a lot of those pull that magnesium out. Magnesium by itself, supplementation is almost got rid of like restless leg and almost completely, because now that we figured out it's a muscle, the because of the lack of magnesium that starts the muscle pains and stuff like that. So if you have somebody in that issue, that those are things to think about. So those are my three for this week. All right, let's talk about some Aaron. I want to do this. I want to bring up. Do you have a website for 180
I do.
Impact? You do?
Yep. And that, yes.
Sweet. So what I will do, and I'll try to share my screen and find it. Is it under, what's your website name?
It's just the 180impact.com.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Pretty easy.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit. So tonight is big on just knowing who you are. Oh, be nice. And this could be my my online stuff, so I might wait.
I hope so.
I I have issues tonight, especially. Well, we'll get to that anyway. 180impact.com is awesome. So let's talk a little bit about you, my man. Let's do
Sure
it.
thing.
So our first thing is what did you do prior to this 180 impact we were talking about?
Well, I just the last couple months in March, I retired after 25 years in law enforcement. So really, I had started that while I was still in law enforcement. So doing that for 25 years, like when I look back into it, the career was my life and it was my identity and a lot of other things, and hence the reason for the 180 impact eventually down the road, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, I was just the poster child police officer. Everything that I could do, achieve, I went for, and that became my identity, amongst other things. And eventually that trauma and all that stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis finally caught up to me. Ended up leaving the job for several months and coming back. Ultimately, about a year or two later, that's when the 180 impact was kind of brought to light, or
That's
formed
awesome.
rather. Yeah.
Because I remember my first discovery with you on this. Well, there's a couple things. You started a gym, that like a CrossFit. You did a lot of things. You were so super active while you were doing, you know, police work on top. So
Yeah, I forgot about that.
70 hours a week. And so I heard the name, right? And so I had a few friends of his that were talking, and it was fantastic to, to see, man, because most of there are high achievers, right? So police officers are into the high achievement portions. One thing that always stood out was one of his friends, and this is even before I knew Aaron, told me about the situation where he wasn't there for a few months and how they were going to hold his position because they were hoping he would not make the other choice of not showing up again, And so I'm like, dang, you must be. I mean, the guy I was talking to was pretty legit police officer himself. He's like, if we lose Aaron, we lose a lot, dude. Like, and I didn't even know Aaron at the time, really, And so I'm like, man, this is fascinating. I can't wait to actually meet him. So eventually, we got to meet each other and to see where he's come mentally and consciously. So our thing, Aaron, tonight is always about, we call it the 1% tribe. We
Mhm.
try to do small things each week in physical, mental, nutritional. And so, and all of those equal, the best person, and so,
Right.
and me and you got to go into the podcast a while ago where it's and it's the same concept where once you start understanding, sometimes you have to go through that fire to like get sharpened,
Mhm.
but sometimes, which way does it choose, and you chose this. I want like for me, I want to go through like how you came to that. So you took these few months off.
Mhm.
You were achieving at a high level. It's obvious. All your, like when you have a police officer say, "Hey, we're just holding his position." That's kind of a thing. So they were like, "No, we're good. He's gone." No, they're like, wait, we'll wait till he gets back, and that would be great. Um, so obviously the attainment is there. You're achieving what you want to.
Mhm.
But what was it that was just it was starting to get you, in the sense of, all the different rigors, I suppose.
Yeah. So I would say typically what happens is that when you get into this career field, we go through what we call the honeymoon phase, right? You're a brand new officer and you're out there just full throttle. You're meeting new, other officers. Everything's new, everything's exciting. You're going out there and seemingly doing what you went to the academy for. You're making a difference. You're arresting bad guys. They're going to jail. Once you start realizing that this is a never ending cycle of arresting the same folks, the things that you see starts catching up to you. And
Mhm,
typically for us, we continue to keep going because that's part of the culture, right? I mean,
mhm,
you're seeing horrific fatal car accidents. You're dealing with dead children. You're dealing with sexual assault victims, homicide victims, and so you get into this mindset of like you just keep going. You just keep going. Don't take it personal. So after that honeymoon phase is over, we call it the shift in identity phase, where now you won't admit that you're starting to have some trouble with the things that you're doing and the things that you're seeing. So rather, that's when you'll see our culture start to develop bad habits such as alcohol abuse, domestic issues, anger issues, depression and anxiety, but we're not going to admit that or we're not going to face that. So we just keep going down that path. And that's why things get so bad for us. And that's why our statistics are so high when it comes to the suicide rate, when it comes to the alcohol abuse, domestic violence issues, anger, the emotions that are inside, we don't know what to do with. So we just keep pushing and keep pushing. And for me, it just got to the point where it was kind of twofold for me. One, I got on the department. I became a firearms instructor, a driving instructor. I got on the SWAT team very early. I became a sniper very early. I did all of these things because to me, that competitive drive and part of it was that validation of
mhm.
what I was getting back from the boys, right? You're the tip of the spear. Keep going, keep going, keep going. But at the same time, it was the long hours. It was the different shift work. It was just that beginning to see that what I'm doing here isn't making a difference. I'm arresting the same people. The court system's busted, so that really starts taking a toll on
Yeah.
you. When I really got in trouble mentally and emotionally is when I got promoted to the detective bureau. So I went from I was in the gang suppression unit with 5 other guys, and we were going out every day. We had the same target, we had the same goals. Getting into the detective bureau, I was now responsible for my entire caseload. And then you're dealing with shootings, homicides, you're getting called in the middle of the night. This is when you really start having to deal and see the depravity of man and abused children, dead children, homicide victims. And it really starts building up because there's just seemingly no end in sight. And when you talk about secondary trauma, and really that is the obviously responding or being involved in the trauma of somebody else. That's what we do for a living.
Mhm.
Nobody calls 911 because they're having a great day. You have to respond to that and attempt to fix it. So after about 6 years in the detective bureau, I just really found myself super angry, very short tempered, very hostile towards the job itself. And then, of course, that carries over into home. And at this point, I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't care to deal with, trauma and PTSD. That's for a bunch of sissies. That's not me. I'm the tough guy until I wasn't. And it literally got to a point where I'd taken a call of a dead 4-year-old girl. And that was the one I think that ended up really pushing me over the edge because I was having the thoughts constantly, the ruminating on going and seeing the body, um, all of those things. And I had sat in my office for a couple of days after that and had then gotten a call from the prosecutor's office to prepare for a homicide trial of a 4-month-old child that I had to take. The mom's boyfriend threw the child on the floor and ultimately killed the child, and all of that buildup just hit me, and not knowing about this stuff and the trauma and everything that I dealt with, I knew I had to get out of there, and that was the process. I literally walked away from the job, like no resignation, no, here's my 2 week notice. I got up and was gone. There's a longer story behind that, and I make light of it now because, as I tell the story, it is kind of funny. Like I went AWOL. Nobody knew where I was, but my backpack had gotten full to the point of like I had to do something because I was a mess, and I was a mess coming home. I wasn't sleeping, all of those things, right? So that's what I did. I walked out of the job.
That's crazy. So with that, one of the things that I've always noticed, and I respect this high in law enforcement, there's such a good piece of the brotherhood, the things they teach you, right? But so you have a decent foundation. So you have this like foundation of this brotherhood. Some of the guys that I always say, like, one of the things that petrifies me is when I see a newbie because they don't go into, let's say, police officer training as quickly, but let's say a prison guard, right? And I've noticed this just in my holistic chiropractic stuff. I could have a prison guard come in with like zero body fat, and he's like, "Hey, I'm starting at the prison," right? And I'm going, "Oh my God, be careful. Keep your wits about you mentally, all those things. Keep working out, doing all that." The next time I see him, they'll be 70 pounds heavier.
Mhm.
They'll be the energy just changes, and it's
Mhm.
like so much. They're like within this conscious framework of they don't know who to trust, and it almost seems like a police officer, at least they're guided with their team to kind of get there. But then each level you go up, are you ready? Like, can you ever be ready for those multiple traumas that get you up there, that you can work out till the cows come home, you know, and you can do a lot of good, healthy things for your body. You can do everything perfect, but you still there's no release valve at
Mhm.
that point. And that's what we try to explain every week. One reason Amy, so she does this, we started doing it's not really a psychological technique, it's called Psych-K. It's like a muscle testing that helps you understand your subconscious program. And so
Mhm.
your subconscious is what runs your human body 95% of the day.
Oh, absolutely.
5% of the day, yeah, 5% of the day, it's your consciousness. So what
Mhm.
happens is like with police training, you've trained your subconscious. You've got a new program that you're running for achievements and those kind of things. But the
Mhm.
problem is like you can't ever break that high achievement, when something happens. And like you said, that denial of it isn't part of the programming.
Mhm.
It's like it's trying to run in the background, and you're like, no, 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 and that's what is so fascinating. Um, so from there, you obviously went back, you finished your career, right? So we
Mhm.
retired 25 years.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You don't look a day over 10 of it, which is
Hey.
awesome. That's right. I know. But like so after that, this is where I really, because I got you one of the first podcasts like right when you started, I think.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
close to it.
probably.
So yeah, so talk to me about this. So 180 Impact, what is it?
Mhm.
And like what have you done so far with it?
Yeah, yeah. So essentially, the way the whole thing started, I came that 6 or 7 months that I was off, Jeremy. I nerded out on research. When I found out, like, okay,
Oh,
depression,
speaking of that,
anxiety.
I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah, go ahead.
that was one of the coolest parts to me when you told me this story before. You went
Yeah,
into self-improvement mode. You did
right.
the 1% tribe thing. You didn't go the
Yes.
other way. You could have went the other way. You could have went
Yeah,
toxic. You could have went, I mean, I gotta have a weed store right next to my office. You could have went that way. You could have went all these different places, right?
yeah,
But you
yeah,
didn't. You went into
yeah.
self-improvement.
Yeah.
which is crazy to me. That was awesome to hear that. So keep
Yeah.
going. I'm sorry. So keep
Yeah,
talking.
no, 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 not at all. So really, I was toxic prior to this, but my whole mindset at the time was I'm done with police work. If I don't have to go back a day in my life, if I have to, mop floors at McDonald's and I'm happy doing that, I'm cool. I had to get rid of that whole facade and work on me. But I knew that if I'm going to take that route, if I go to McDonald's and mop floors, wherever you go, there you are. I was taking that attitude. I was still messed up. And so I just, I started Googling stuff on depression and how to change your thoughts, I think it was. And some books came up and I was like, oh man, this is it. Joe Dispenza was a book, and then
Oh, we
Carolyn
talk about him
Leaf,
a
and
lot.
yeah, he's pretty heavy duty. And just anything I could get my hands on. And when I started looking at how, when you just spoke about 95% of our thinking and thought life is walking around unconsciously. And when you get wired towards that anger and those thoughts, that's how you're walking around. So how do you change that? So I really got into, some of the concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
and changing your perspective, rewiring your thoughts and things like that. So as I went on, I kind of put myself through my own self-paced program of rewiring my thoughts. And after about 30 days, 60 days or so, I really started noticing a change. I was journaling everything that I was doing.
Yep.
And that really made a big difference. I got into counseling. I have a family friend who is a breathwork coach. I started doing that, trying to get back into parasympathetic nervous system state. Every tool that I could get my hands on, I was going to try it to try to figure this out, to try to get back to, some normalcy here. So I did that. Obviously, in going back to work, there were several meetings with the city's HR department and how I was going to come back and what that looked like. But I came back and I told the department when I came back, listen, no more SWAT team, no more firearms instructor, no more nothing. I'm coming back. I'm doing my job. I'm setting boundaries, and that's it. I'm going home. So when I returned to work, it was it was almost as quick to the department as when I walked away. It was literally like I just showed up again one day back to work, and everybody's like, "Hey man, where the
Sweet.
hell have you been? What happened? Where are you?" Blah blah blah. So with that, at that point, I'd been gone for like 6 or 7 months. I was very open with what I had been up to, what had happened to me, and what I was doing to fix and correct that. And I think with first and foremost that transparency and that vulnerability, I started having a lot of younger officers pull me aside. Hey, I'm noticing this. Hey, what did you do about that? These kids struggling after being on the job just 2 or 3 years, relationship troubles, high anxiety, can't sleep. And so I was kind of running all of these younger officers, giving them the same spiel. So I went to a buddy of mine who was in the detective bureau with me, and I said, hey, I want to build a class that has these certain modules in it, basically about my story and what I did and the techniques that I used in order to turn some of this stuff around. So we did that. That was a monster because it was an 8-hour class that we built. We eventually got it. This was before COVID. So we had gotten it grant funded through the Battle Creek Community Foundation. And when we did that, they basically funded our class and said, just invite people and go. So from police officers, being down at the department for so many years, I knew corrections officers, firefighters, a lot of folks at life care, paramedics, dispatchers, child care or child protective services workers, foster care workers. I invited everybody. And what I learned from that is that this first responder community, we all deal with the same issues. We deal with the same clients. And so from those classes and the feedback that we got, the folks that took those classes, since it was grant funded, they had to fill out a pretty lengthy assessment that went back to Western Michigan University under the grant. And the feedback we got was enough to encourage me to say, okay, I'm going to start a business. I want to coach other people. I want to go and talk to first responders. I want to get this information out there to them because during that time, I studied the statistics on all of our first responders, everything from the suicide rate to the alcohol abuse rate to the divorce rate to the drug abuse rate. It's all there. And so that was really, I just branded myself. I got an LLC and started slowly getting contracted to go in and talk to other departments to talk. I've spoke at a couple of state conferences, and I do one-on-one coaching now because I think a lot of our first responders are very weary of the psychological or the mental health industry and getting help that route. So here I am, and that's how the 180 Impact was born, and it continues to this day.
It's so awesome because like where one of the things that I always noticed, and this is true, we can look into the data as this as well, but you're talking, so you have these police officers that are high physical people. And a lot of times what happens is the physical ramifications as well. Higher heart issues, higher cholesterol issues, blood pressure off the chain. And like, so you're talking physiological impacts that are not just the stuff you can physically see with that, the suicides and those kind of things, but you work so hard in that entire time frame of that career to lose it to heart conditions and different, like different emotional connections because the heart is the one, you go see a baby getting something happen to them, you're going to have a slight broken heart in the emotional sense. And that's why all those things are so connected. And then all you can do is improve each time because the human body can improve all of those things. It's just
Absolutely.
how. It's like, how do you do that? It's like, man, and that's the problem is like from this guy named Bruce Lipton. I talk to about him all the time.
I've heard of him. I've seen some of his videos.
Yeah. So I tell the story. So he entered when I was in chiropractic school, his best buddy was one of our teachers. And that's when he got fired from medical school. So we got to have him for 2 weeks where I have his original notes of his book. He gave it to me because I couldn't stop asking questions in his class. And it's all about epigenetics and how we can actually change our genes. And that's one reason me and you connect so much is we look for those guys, the Wim Hofs of the world, the SEAL team guys, all these guys that actually have changed their programming because epigenetics is not necessarily, hey, I got to change my genes. It's about changing the program. And then those genes change, right? And so what you did, you just walked me through the entire cognitive therapy that you can do it. You absolutely can change your programming to get you to a new position. And it'd be awesome. I hope young police or anybody out there, all of the public, like you said, first responders, listen to this and really reach out. Because to me, if they have a coach that early, imagine if you had that and you had something, I always think back then, if you started with somebody, you could just not put the onus on therapy, but go, okay, this is what this means,
Right.
as far as your overall health and where you're going to be in 15 to 20 to 35 years.
Right.
Are we going to live happy throughout that whole thing? So man, that's really good. So what is the new, have you been, so with 180 Impact, so you said, where was your last cool venture out in it? So
the last coolest one, because I was still working, and in my last year of my career, our youngest son was also a senior in high school, so I decided to jump on the bandwagon and help coach basketball season. So I had basketball season. I had
nothing wrong with that.
The job. But we got the opportunity to speak at I don't know if you've ever heard of CIT. It's critical incident training, but it's taught to law enforcement officers around the country. It's an international model, and it just basically trains officers how to go out and deal with people who are in mental health crisis and try to understand that as a kind of a jail diversion. Well, a small, very small portion of the CIT training is officer wellness. So for instance, in a 40-hour class, 2 hours of that is dedicated to officer wellness. Well, me and my big mouth, when they brought it to Battle Creek, I was like, no, we need more than this. And so I offered to do our training here at CIT when they do it at Battle Creek. So last summer, we got to speak at CIT International over in Detroit. And so we made a lot of great connections over there from officers all over the country, and
That's awesome.
some even in Alaska and stuff. So after the retirement gig, since things have somewhat slowed down and I already have another part-time job, um, I'm looking at being able to obviously take on more clients, do my podcasting once again, get that up and running because I loved doing it, but it got to a point where I have one of these plates that I'm spinning is going to fall, and
Yep.
unfortunately, it had to be that one in the meantime. So now that everything is kind of we've got the boy graduated and the open houses are over and all of that other stuff. I'm
Yeah.
really excited to get back into doing my content and doing some of that stuff that just puts the information out there to people.
Yeah, you're so motivating, actually. That's one reason you're my first guest. I was like, I had the same thing Aaron did. I had my podcast, The Prize Inside. I got away from it a little bit with the COVID craziness.
Mm.
I decided to dive into being a registered herbalist. That was like a 2-year program. But then I knew once I started going, man, there's a drive to do it. And that's what's
Mhm.
so cool. As I think like hearing from guys that, local Battle Creek people, right? I love it. Like hearing where we can go, and what you have around you, and
Mhm.
never, stop that. So as soon as I was like, I'm getting my podcast rolling, your mind like came up. My first interview is going to be Aaron because he
Yeah.
motivates me all the time anyway. So
Appreciate it.
that'll be the way to do it. It was like, but yeah, so that's what I wanted my audience to know is understanding that there are tools like this. 180
Mhm.
Impact could be a huge tool for you,
Mhm.
especially, and don't think you have to be a police or first responder. So Aaron shocked me one time when we talked about it the first time, his first class. What was your majority of the people in the class? Tell people that.
Oh man, you might have to remind me.
So you had a bunch of social workers in there.
Yes, we went
Yes,
to
you remember that?
yes, we went and trained a bunch of clinicians
Yeah.
and people
I
with
thought
master's degree in
because when he
psychology and
came out
social
of it,
work.
when he came out of it, I'm like, he goes, Jeremy. It was like, I thought I'd have all these police officers and stuff. It was like full of social workers. I go, exactly.
Yeah,
I was like, dang, that makes a lot of sense, actually. You're
they
talking
invited
about
us
one
to
of the
their
hardest
practice.
careers. Yeah, you have one of the hardest careers that nothing changes in a sense,
Hmm.
right? So you're talking, you learn all these cool things to like see these changes and you don't see it like they said in school was going to happen,
Right.
and that happens in all of healthcare in general, but you guys have it a lot more traumatic. I kind of alluded to it like an ER doctor, like I have a few friends that are, and it's you have to have a different humor. You have to have
Oh
they
yeah.
think they're weird, like a lot of
Oh
times
yeah.
they get out of it, but you're talking horrific things and you got to figure out a way, but that's the thing. It's that constant journey of the consciousness and understanding that you can be better. You can be better every day. You just got to
Hmm.
figure it out, like, and I always thought that was the neatest thing about the city, you guys as a brotherhood in general. You did really, really good in that field, but just once you get up there in the levels, it's tough, man. It's
Yeah.
tough. To stay healthy is another thing.
Hmm.
So let's say, what do you do now? Now that you're retired, are you staying active and do well? Coaching basketball is pretty sweet. So
Yeah, so that ended and then I was honestly I retired and I my wife wanted me to take a couple of months and do nothing, and of course that did not fare very well because you can
you're
you
like
can
a
prepare
squirrel. What are you talking about?
you can
No.
prepare for all of those things, but the anxiety and loss that I went through as soon as I retired was tremendous. My
Yep.
tribe was gone, the text threads are gone, my purpose and focus of everyday life is gone. Even though I was pretty much checked out of police work and knew that was coming to an end, that transition was really rough for me, and so after about 3 weeks, I ended up getting a call from a guy I went to high school with, and got a little part-time job, basically doing consulting and liaison work between Summit Point, our community mental health, and our local law enforcement agencies to try to bridge the gaps and to better those relationships. So I'm doing that part-time. Besides that, I have a daily routine of trying to get up and go to the gym, eating healthier and just still taking care of myself. And I think what you spoke about earlier is that our bodies throughout our entire career are in constant fight or flight mode, whether we think we are or not. Your body allows you to feel like you're adapting to it, and you are to a degree, but you get used to operating in that fight and flight mode, right? I think it's polyvagal theory or whatever. This like the newest psychology that really goes into just fight and flight. So really a lot of what I talk about when I try to sit folks down one-on-one is just say, listen, you want to do these changes, and we want to, whether it be cognitive behavioral therapy or rewiring, we have to get you into parasympathetic, or what we say rest and digest. And from there, you can start to do the work. So really, I've been really still kind of geeking out on a lot of lately how the nervous system and the endocrine system is affected by this career with the high cortisol levels and with the hormones and the pituitary gland. So that's been kind of like my latest venture in like, okay, how am I going to simplify this for, we say down to meathead cop science to say, listen, you're destroying yourself. And I glean a lot of this from our military, coming back from deployments and being under that high level of stress, go, 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 go. But yeah, so my latest thing is like just getting my coaching going and talking and teaching people, as well as learning myself. I'm never going to stop learning. So I just think that keeps you going. You find a focus and a purpose. That's the key to it, man. That's the key to it.
And that's what we always talk about. Like tonight, our Sunday talk is always about understanding that it's always a journey. It's never been anything but that, right? So it's never been a destination ever. That's when you're done, right? The destination is when you're done, and that's it. Like, but there's so many ways to get there too. So if me and you are going to Grand Rapids, there's 27 roads we can choose from, and they're all get you to Grand Rapids. It just depends on which ones you want to choose. And that's our job, is like to slowly move the needle each time, to take a step each day in every way. So physically, nutritionally, mentally. And the one that me and Amy talk about a lot is the mental part, because that really, really is the key to a ton of it. When you're talking 95% of your day is subconscious, and you run whatever that is, whatever that program is. There's a really good book. You'd love it. It's called, so Bruce Lipton, one of my favorite stories he always told was he's a super liberal, never getting married scientist that smoked all the time and pissed off at the world. So that's basically who he was. So he he goes, oh crap, the DNA doesn't run the body. This is how he got fired from medical school. So the DNA of the body. So he was doing a experiment on liver cells. So he was taking the DNA out of the liver cell and then sequencing it. So he was part of the Human Genome Project out of the University of Wisconsin Medical. So he's he got every piece of the DNA out of the liver cell, and he's doing the sequence, however they do that. But he looked over and he saw that the liver cell is still living. So that didn't make any sense. We just said that the DNA is the key to life, man. Like, how was that possible? So he kept feeding the liver cell like liver food, whatever, and it kept living. It kept doing the exact same thing a liver would do, right? And he was like, holy crap, we have this wrong. The DNA is basically a program on your computer. It's the program on the computer. It's what runs the computer. Your fingers, your consciousness tells you what to type. You can run any program, right? And so that's where epigenetics comes from, where you can actually convert or change the DNA that the program you're running. And so depths of this, but he one of the that was one of my favorites because first started it when he finally found a girl that was the funniest part. She was into energy medicine, and he had just got out of the medical, that whole thing. Because of this, he got fired because he said DNA is not the key to life. So they said you're gone. So they fired him.
Doesn't fit their narrative.
Correct. So he comes to a chiropractic school, which is hilarious. So he still teaches in a chiropractic school in New Zealand sometimes, but but anyway, so he sits in it. So he gets he gets home from work or wherever he was working. And after this new girlfriend, I think he was working at a school or a professorship or something. And he sat and he just boom, just sat and was grumpyish in the chair. Oh, long day at work. But it was all his body language. So this is when he wrote his first book called The Honeymoon Effect, because she walks by and goes, whoever this is, she slaps him in the head. And he goes, hey, whoever this is that came out of work and acting like a dork, after work, being all grumpy. Who is that? And she just kept walking, right? Because it was a different person. But that's what he learned from his dad, right? So he didn't know he had a program running. It was the program he ran, right? And so what happened is it doesn't mean the guy's it doesn't mean he's that. He just it was just a program he learned years and years ago. And so he was like, oh crap, I have to change that program. And then he started working on that. And the way you do it is actually the way the cognitive behavioral therapy type situation and what you're coaching is one of the major ways of programming. Yours is one of them. And so very, very tough to get it done in the world we live in currently.
Right.
But that changes and you can actually see the genes change. So so cool. So cool. I'm trying to think of anything else. What do you got going? Any new ventures for 180 Impact? Just increasing like how many private ones you're doing, right? That'll be cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Which typically, I run them like sessions, and I'm not there to say, oh, it takes, I want to run a different model. I run usually half-hour sessions. Once we get up and running, I run my folks through what we call a flight assessment. I think it was the DISC at one point when I had spoken to you.
Yeah.
My coach, I partner with Eric Thomas, the motivational speaker, and his company ended up changing it to a flight assessment, which is some components of the DISC, but a lot easier to understand, and it goes more in depth to natural and adaptive behavior. So really, I just I go over that assessment so people can understand their communication styles and their behavioral preferences. And I run them through, I call it an A5 framework. You have to have the awareness of what you want to do, right? That's first and foremost, because like you said, walking around 95% of the time unconscious. I was really surprised, Jeremy, when I sit officers and first responders, or a lot of people down for that matter, and say, what is your purpose? And they're like, I've never thought about it. What are your goals? I've never thought about it. They're so stuck in the career and they're so stuck in their day-to-day life that they're like, I don't really know. Boom, let's figure that out. The awareness, the adjustment, the action, the accountability. I always look at people or tell folks like, maybe counseling and therapy is going to help you back here in the past somewhere. What I do is I coach you. We'll take it from there. What about your future plans? Where are you at?
Yeah.
What's going on in your life? And then whether it's goal setting, whether it's, hey, I just need to ramp it down, talking about some of that cognitive behavioral stuff. I give them homework and then I just keep them accountable. And my goal is to just have the client be without me, right? That's a success. That's a win. Is when I give them what they want, what they come for, and then teach them to be able to do that on their own. So that's really what I want to do. I'll start picking up the pace here before too long. Now that everything's settled down, I'll be getting back into the podcasting and some of the content creation and just offering my services to individuals and groups. I go and teach groups of officers, oftentimes like in a 4-hour class. Obviously, the one-on-one is a lot more personal and gets each person
Yeah.
right where they want to be. But yeah, just man, the sky's the limit. I'm open to whatever. I love doing it. It's
Awesome.
my new calling and it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited because I'm gonna have you over. We're doing like little seminars on herbal. Our first one's gonna be anti-inflammatory. We're gonna run it like I think end of August somewhere, but it's at
Okay.
my house in my party barn, so it'll be
Oh,
super fun. So
sweet,
I'll
man.
have
Throw
your
me,
stuff because we're gonna go over inflammation. I know it's fun. Been
yeah,
setting
throw
up
me
for this
that
for a long time.
information.
We got this whole barn set up and all that good stuff. So, so
Yeah,
yeah, I
because
think the
I'm
self.
really,
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
oh no, I'm really interested in, as well as I'm into stuff like that too, like different tinctures and herbs and things to
Oh
help,
yeah.
help us sleep. For instance,
Oh yeah.
I've always been a trouble sleeper, and now knowing the cognitive effects of that, what it does to your endocrine system and things. So yeah, man, shoot me the invite. I'll come over
Heck yeah, baby. We'll
to the
get that.
compound.
So I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Now I know writing a class is a little tougher than sitting on a Zoom.
Dude,
I
I tell
was
you
like,
what,
I bet you had a fun. That was like, that's
yeah,
intense.
yeah. Running a class or putting it together is the monster. That's where you're going to have trouble. But now that once you do it, it's just like
Yeah.
my brain's not used to that. So throw everything against the wall and then start narrowing it down into modules and topics. And now I've just got like with this polyvagal stuff, there's some great information. I never was really aware of what do they call it when you're in a room and your brain's scanning and taking in all the information that stores it and then you may react on it later.
Oh yeah.
Neuro something or another. Doggone, I was going to remember that. But it's huge for first responders because
Oh yeah.
you go to calls and you're high stress and your brain is taking in every little
Dude,
thing that you're unaware of,
that's
storing it in your
crazy.
body, and then you're going to go home and your wife's going to say, "Hey, why didn't you unload the dishwasher?" Your body's going to bring that up of like, I was judged at work. I was spoken to at work. And
Right.
you're seeing that as the same thing. Boom, that's a threat. That's a challenge. And now you're bringing that
Correct.
stuff home. So all of this
Dude, you
stuff
just came up
ties
with a
in.
one of my patients he was a police officer. You actually worked with him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Had that guy wouldn't let his kid or his wife and his kid, they'd go grocery shopping. He would have to bring them, but he'd have to go around Myers first. So he'd have
Mm-hmm.
to drive around the whole building and
Mm-hmm.
do a check. And
Yeah.
you wouldn't have thought 2 seconds that that was a thing until you talk to the wife. That's the only
Yeah.
way I that's he goes, he does that, right? I go, does
Yeah.
what? And then he'll patrol the entire area. He was one, actually, I should tell you this one. He was probably my first one with an emotional trigger because he had this low back sciatica. And a lot of times in emotion, so you can have the physical, you hurt your low back,
Mm-hmm.
chemical, think like food poisoning can mess your low back up, right? All those make sense. Emotional can be a thing too. So if like anger doesn't have to be anger, but a lot of times it can, like sometimes if you can't figure out what the heck happened, you ask what happened other than those two things. And
Mm-hmm.
so this guy had a low back sciatica that was pretty nasty. It had he took down somebody pretty good. So then we adjusted him. The next time, I'm like, that's weird. His low back sciatica came back. This is months later. He was like not a guy that I would think had sciatica even once before. He goes, man, that sciatic nerve came back. I'm checking him everywhere. I'm like, what did you do? He's like, no, I was on vacation. I was like, what? So after talking to him, he was like, I go, what actually happened? Like, what happened in the last damn week that got you your body all, well, he goes, oh, my daughter got punched by her boyfriend. And I'm going down to talk to the boyfriend this week. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is why you have sciatica right now. I'm just letting you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of those kind of manifestations are the thing. You can have those physical ones. And
Yeah.
so those are amazing, amazing pieces. But
Yeah. The body
yeah,
does keep the score. That's for sure.
It does.
Mhm. And to be in that constant state, man, my heart hurts for folks like that, because I mean I was there too,
Yeah.
and still we talk about um, being situational awareness and a lot of those things, which I think are very, very important. Don't walk
Oh,
around with your head in the
absolutely.
sand, but if you're not giving yourself that opportunity to release that and get into parasympathetic and rest and digest, man, that's where we have the health issues down the road
Exactly.
or shortly
Exactly.
after we retire. I lost a great friend of mine less than a year after he retired. Wife found him dead on the couch. And I'm just like, you know what? It's scary because it's just like
Mhm.
we think we have it all together.
Yep.
And when you talk about anger, there's so many parts and pieces to unravel, but anger is a big one, especially for men, because when you talk about the emotional component, we're fixers and we're doers. And when we can't figure something out, uh, we
Yes.
become angry and upset because we don't have the answers. And so that carries over into those types of emotions. So really,
Right.
I tell a lot of guys, hey, man, it's good. When you're dealing with, and I don't want to isolate your audience, but when you're
Yeah.
dealing with a man and their emotions, I always tell them, if you're going to go to therapy, you damn well better find a therapist that is ready to watch you basically punch the floor and to scream and to cry, because those are the emotions that come out of men oftentimes in therapy. And I've seen it happen in coaching. I was coaching a military officer, Jeremy, that had been overseas and was having a lot of troubles. And as we saw it, sat and talked, I could see tears welling up in his eyes. And I said, "Why don't you want to cry?" He says, "I've never cried in front of my wife and I've never cried in front of my therapist." So we went down this rabbit hole, dude. And I
Yeah.
told him, I said, "Let it go." And he sat there and bawled in front of me for probably 10 minutes straight.
Yep.
Never seen that happen before. And I'm like, we're told as guys that this is wrong, that we can't be,
Right.
badasses and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you've
Mhm.
gone through a lot of stuff. So whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, the body holds on to it. And it's also interconnected. You've got to almost take and chunk this out and start where
Yeah.
you're at and
I
go from
agree.
there. And it's all
Man,
it's all
you got
good
me
stuff.
chills when you're telling your body the truth, and when you've been through so much crap and
Yeah,
big stuff, you must still tell the truth. And that's what's so hard, is
yeah,
because the truth is ugly,
it
and
is. And it
it's like
hurts.
it hurts and it's ugly. And once we get there, the relief of that is,
Hmm.
I mean, you feel the parasympathetic going. I got the parasympathetic just from that thought process.
Hmm.
It's just, oh, it's amazing. Oh, that
Yeah.
was good. I think that'll end us this time, but you're
All
coming
right.
back at some point, my brother.
Anytime, man. I'm
Yes,
retired now, so I got more. I don't have
I know you're. Oh God,
I've got a little more time
figured
on
you'd
my
be
hands, but
golfing or. No, I'm just kidding.
once this year, I've got to get out of town though, man. I got to get up north and hit a water source and down regulate for a couple of days. It's
Yes, you
been
do.
it's been
Yes,
go time, but
especially up north, man. Right
oh
now, oh,
yeah,
there's nothing better than that.
there really isn't.
All right, mister. Well, you have a good night.
Yeah,
And
you two
thank you
get it.
again for doing this,
Yeah, for
man.
sure. Get a hold of
Appreciate
me,
it.
man. We'll
I
catch up.
will. I will. This will be good.
All
See
right,
you.
man.